Hi, I'm Brandon. I love Star Wars.
I'm Ryan. I like Star Wars.
And I've got a bad feeling about this. And this is the Deck the Hallmark podcast.
Deck the Hallmark, it's his podcast.
Brandon and friends host his podcast.
We hope you like this jolly podcast.
What's up, nerds?
Oh, yeah. What up, Star Wars nerds?
Hey, we're gonna the
We're
views.
so cool over here at Deck the Hallmark, but we're stooping to your nerd level.
That's right. We typically just do Hallmark stuff. Not
right.
anymore. Not anymore. And we are
We got
wearing
our Jedi robes on, using the Force. Ryan couldn't be bothered to dress up.
I got a Star Wars.
Oh,
shirt on.
okay. Come on,
I got a Star Wars
baby.
shirt on.
Do the magic. What does it say?
It's a Carl Weathers line from The Mandalorian. Come on, baby, do the magic hand thing. He says the little baby.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
it's great to be here. It's been a long time coming.
Long time coming.
For those of you that are maybe newer to the program and you're wondering why post
This one's not my fault.
Christmas in
Can't get in
July
trouble
are
for
the
this.
guys going to do Star Wars movies? Well, it's because we did Fast and Furious movies last year.
It's because we did the first season of The Way Home and wanted an excuse to do more things. And Ryan, Pappolla, and I started really like politicking for Fast Fridays.
Yes.
And
Started
then
as
you
a bit,
finally
became
caved
serious.
and you
Yeah.
and you did it with us. And here we are. Why not Force Fridays? If we
Yes.
can do
So
Fast
it has
Fridays.
become a thing that we do post Christmas in July to get us to the holiday season where we review classic franchises.
Yes.
And it just so happened that there
Yeah.
are as many Star Wars theatrical movies as there were Fast movies. So that's fun.
crazy.
It's fun. It's a good little
It's 11.
good little tie in there, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Ryan, what's your experience with the Star Wars movies? I think it's important to let everybody know ahead of time kind of where our fandom lies. We did the love, scared thing earlier.
I've got a bad feeling about this. Is a very famous quote from almost every Star Wars movie where they say
Right.
that right before something terrible happens. And I have a bad feeling about my review this week. So I felt that it was thematic.
There you go.
No, it was really good.
Where
Yeah,
are you
thank
at fandom-wise? Would you consider yourself a fan of the Star Wars franchise?
I think is the perfect. Typically, when I'm on here, I actually really enjoy the things that we're talking about. I like Star Wars. I think a lot of people who listen weekly have been following me for my time on the pod. Know I'm a big nerd. I'm into a lot of geek culture fandom things. Star Wars isn't one of those. I don't dislike it. I don't love it. I've seen all of these films once or twice. I have a couple of Star Wars action figures in my collection. I like it, but I would say I am a casual fan, Bran.
I would put myself in a similar category. I'm excited to watch episodes 1 through 6. Again, it has been a hot minute for me.
Yeah.
I would say, and this is going to show my age some, but I've seen episodes 4, 5, and 6 the least amount.
Yeah.
I've seen episodes 1, 2, and 3 the next amount. I've seen them more than the.
I see. We got it.
And then I've seen
7,
episodes
8,
7, 8, 9 the most of
Yeah.
the Star Wars movies. And that's just kind of how I am. I don't know if that's for better or for worse. I've never given it a ton of thought of people have opinions on which one's the best and whatnot. And I'm not just kind of like, they're all fun. They're all fun. There's people, with lightsabers and stuff. What's not to like? So I'm excited to put my critical eyes in. I have separate eyes for
you
when
gotta
I'm
pop right on in there.
watching something critically, and I think it's going to be a fun practice, especially with these older ones. Going back and watching them for the first time in quite some time, I'm very much looking forward to it. Dano,
I loved the first 3 movies on VHS. I didn't get to go to the movie theater a lot, but I did watch the tapes of these over and over again as a kid. I don't get into the expanded universe. I don't get it. If you start a sentence with, but have you seen the Clone Wars? I'm out. But the movies, yeah, I watch all the movies. I will say Star Wars fandom is weird. I think younger Star Wars fans, I really when I teach kids in school that are Star Wars, they seem to really love it and enjoy it and good for them. Old Star Wars fans like me, most of them that aren't like me, but are big into it. Most of them are kind of the worst because they're not happy unless you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And so it's interesting. It's an interesting property that I'm shocked is what it is. And And so I'm fascinated to do this because I had a distinct ranking in my head, and watching this first movie has already questioned most everything I thought I knew about Star Wars, because even though I had seen this movie a couple dozen times, I had not seen it in 20 years. So I'm fascinated, and we're going to do rankings like we did with the Fast and Furious.
Yes,
Okay.
we will.
It's going to get wild. I think it's going to get wild, and I'm excited for that. I don't think I'm ready for Brand's take where he has the last three, the most recent three is the highest. I'm not ready for that
I'm
take.
not saying it's going to happen.
I'm fascinated by this entire experience. I think that people have a lot of emotion tied to these movies and value tied to these movies, and rewatching them, I think we're going to hurt some feelings. And I don't think you need to know up front, because I can already see the emails in my brain. We're just giving a take. You need to know that up front with these movies. Yeah. Like, we're having a ball. We love what we do. But I think some people's feelings are going to be hurt. That'd be my guess. So fascinated to see what happens.
If you're tuning in just for this, you've never heard us before, hi, it's great to see you. You can watch us talk about this on Philo, philo.tv/DTH. It's a wonderful service as well. So you'll not just be getting us, you're getting a ton of stuff with Philo. Philo.tv/DTH. I wrote a synopsis for this movie, which was a fun task for me to get to synopsize. One of the most beloved franchises of all time.
Right.
I'm going to get to do that. That's going to be interesting. And I wish I could play some Star Wars music behind the synopsis.
But are we just going to play Christmas music
We
instead?
will play Christmas music. It's what we're allowed to do.
Also, there's going to be no one listening to this who's going to have corrections. I guarantee you.
No.
The thing about Star Wars people is they're very cool and even-keeled about planets and characters and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can email me,
For
Brian
instance,
at deckthehallmark.com.
Brian at deckthehallmark. The other thing you need to know first, you need to know this. If you're listening, you don't normally listen to Deck the Hallmark. While we're watching this movie, Bran mistook Boba Fett for Jabba the Hutt, and you need to know that. That's where we are. That's where we are. He was like, Boba Fett, he looks different in this movie than he does in the later movies. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then we got there. I
also mix up R2 and C-3PO. Like,
yes,
I just mix them up.
Too.
I mix them up.
Yeah.
I mix them up.
On the Atkins diet. That's awesome.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's great.
Here we go.
Star
Bubba
Wars.
Skinny. Right?
That was pretty good.
We're crushing with the Star Wars diet right now.
Nobody's going to be mad at us.
They're loving it.
Star Wars Episode 4
How'd it go?
originally aired or premiered in theaters on May 25th, 1977.
Where?
I think just around. There was not a big premiere, apparently, or not big enough for Wikipedia to tell us, like in the Fast franchises.
Metropolis
Yes, the
Lagoon?
Metropolis, yes. And it went a little something like this. We are dropped in the middle of a story. There are baddies, the Empire. There are goodies, the rebels.
My goodies.
And they don't, okay.
Look at those baddies.
And again, it's Brian at deckthehallmark.com. And they don't like each other. They had a battle, and in the midst of that battle, the rebels stole plans for the Death Star, which is going to be the ultimate weapon, which is capable of destroying entire planets. Princess Leia... That's right, smart house. Princess Leia is one of the rebel leaders, and she has the plans in her possession. One day, her ship is attacked by a bunch of Empire clone troopers and Darth Vader. They're the baddies, guys, the leader of the Empire. They capture Leia, and she is like, I don't know nothing about nothing. I am here on official princess biz. All the baddies tell Darth Vader that they can't find the plans anywhere on the ship. The reason why they can't find those plans is because Leia gave them to her pals C-3PO and R2-D2. These droids, but they're cool droids. They've got their stuff together. They got on a ship and they flew far away, and so that they wouldn't be able to find the stuff. And they crash landed on a planet called Tatooine. So they're just kind of bebopping around, and they are captured by some traders, sold to a dude named Owen. They're being cleaned off by Owen's nephew, Luke Skywalker. Stop if you've heard the name before. And he is pumped to find out that they've been a part of the rebellion. This is something that intrigues him. As he's cleaning R2, he discovers a recording of Leia requesting help from a former ally named Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's like, I don't know Obi-Wan, but I do know an old Ben close enough. I should go ask him. His Uncle Owen is like, nah, dude, you should just forget about that, but he can't forget about it. So the next day, he and C-3PO go to find him. R2's missing. While searching for him, Luke is attacked by sand people, and he is rescued by Old Ben. Luke is like, yo, I was looking for you, Old Ben. This is great. Great timing. Do you know an Obi-Wan? And he's like, yes, I am him. He tells Luke about his past as one of the Jedi Knights, and that he had abilities called the Force that he was able to use. And Luke learns about his father, who is also a Jedi, who fought alongside of Obi-Wan, and he gives Luke his father's lightsaber. R2 plays Leia's full message, in which she begs Obi-Wan to take the Death Star plans to her father. He's like, Luke, you should join me. And he's like, I can't. I have a family. JK, he doesn't have a family anymore. His family's murdered. That's tough. So he mourns for a minute, and then away they go off the planet. They end up teaming up with Han Solo and Chewbacca. They are pilots for a starship called the Millennium Falcon, and they are able to fly him away. They escape just before the baddies capture them. On board, Luke is playing around with his lightsaber, and Obi-Wan gives him some lessons on the Force. They arrive to where they were trying to get to planet Alderaan. And it's supposed to be there, but it's not. It's blown to smithereens, just like Luke's family. They see what they think is a moon, but it turns out to be the Death Star. But before they can turn around, they are pulled into the ship by this magnetic ray. The gang is able to sneak around the ship, though, by beating up some stormtroopers and taking their costumes. Do you call it a costume? I don't know. They're able to get to Leia, but then they are found out by the stormtroopers, so they end up escaping through a trash chute to a trash compactor, which is all fine and dandy until the compactor starts to compact, and it's closing in on them. Luckily, the droids are there, and they're able to shut it down. They're able to escape with Leia, but as they're escaping, they are found out again. So Obi-Wan sacrifices himself in a lightsaber duel against Darth Vader, which gives them enough time to escape the Death Star. They then discover the Death Star schematics, and they find out that there is a weakness through a small opening, which will lead directly to the station's reactor. And if they can blow that sucker up, if they get through that opening, they're going to blow up the Death Star. So Luke joins the rebellion, and he gets out there, and he's being chased by Darth Vader. Darth Vader's shooting people with a ship. Guided by the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke uses the Force to aim his little missiles into this exhaust port, causing the Death Star to explode moments before they can fire at the Rebel base. The movie ends with a ceremony. No one talk. It's just a lot of looking, winking, and smiling as Luke and Han are handed medals for their heroism from Princess Leia. And that, my friends, was Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope. We nailed it.
We did it.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll break this movie down some more here on Deck the Hallmark. There's no way that people are going to listen to this when all the other things we review are made for TV movies, right? They wouldn't.
I think people listen to the Fast and Furious movies. We had a number of people go, well, my husband or my partner or whomever actually will listen to these episodes. They don't care about the TV Christmas movies, but they'll listen to these. And then I'm just like, Fast and Furious has a few people that want to be like, hey, no, this is the thing. But most people know that that's crazy. A lot of what we're talking about, people use the word canon to describe. So it's kind of a big deal. Yeah. It's kind of a sacred text to some people. And I'm just interested to see how it goes, because I'm not going to pull any punches.
Synopsis was okay, right?
I thought your synopsis was great. But
Okay.
to be fair, this is the easiest of the movies, as you would say, to synopsize.
Yeah,
This is not a lot happening here. Yeah. Here we go.
Let's get to what did happen here. We're going to start with the hot take, and it's where we share exactly how we felt about this movie. The original blockbuster. It busted blocks, Ryan, but did it bust our hearts? I don't know. What do you think about this movie, Ryan?
Two quick forwards. Bran, your robe's on inside out.
Yes, I know.
Shout out to Beth Ann McGraw-Smith for this very lovely Star Wars gingerbread cup that she gave me.
My kid is already, she got me a Yankees when my kid's already taken it. He thinks he's such a big kid drinking out of it, and I just can't even get a hold of it anymore. Beth
Ryan, you do look like a big kid drinking out of yours, too.
You do. That's right. You're a big boy.
You're a big boy.
The third thing, correction,
Thanks,
is the original blockbuster Jaws, 1975. So go ahead, Brant. So go ahead, Ryan, whenever you're ready.
Blockbuster.
That's right.
Blockbuster.
That's right.
All right, I have a lot of thoughts. Nobody can get mad at me for them. Just because something was first doesn't automatically mean it was the best.
That's right.
Which doesn't mean that this anything, maybe this thing, maybe other things wasn't good or a perfect jumping off point or historically important. It just maybe means it wasn't the best. Star Wars Episode 4 is boring. It's a boring movie. There's long stretches of time where not a lot happens. I think it's good that we jump right in the first 10 minutes or so, because I think without that, we'd go, oh, not a lot's happening. I think that what really works about this film is that if I was a kid when this came out, special effects weren't a dime a dozen. They weren't anywhere close to what they were now. Obviously, that goes without saying. This would have blown my mind. But watching it through a 2024 lens, or even when I watched it for the first time as a kid, which was, I don't know, probably 96, 97, it's different. I think the lore of Darth Vader really gets established in the second half of this movie. I don't like that Darth Vader's just kind of like having casual conversations in the first 20 or so minutes. He's just a guy. I think they figure that out. Luke Skywalker, kind of whiny throughout the whole movie.
What?
Kind of a whiner. It's wild. Like the whole plot of Star Wars, the sacred text, as Dan would say, is really laid out in like one brief expositional scene between Luke and Ben Kenobi.
That's right.
That's not great filmmaking. The film really I don't dislike this movie. The film really gets going when Harrison Ford enters. The second hour is much stronger than the first. I think the final act is like the fighter jet stuff also doesn't really work for me. I'm not on the edge of my seat. I think it makes sense though, because I think any type of climactic scene between Luke and Vader would have felt a little not earned based off everything that happened before it. Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick absolutely ripped off the ending of Star Wars. I realized that watching that the other night.
Yeah, they did.
So all of that to be said, I know that was long-winded. To kind of bookend what I said at the top, just because something's boring doesn't mean that it's not made well or not important or that it's not like hugely significant to media and the overall sense of our lives. It just means that this film was a little boring, and that's okay.
My favorite part of this movie was when Luke took Ben Kenobi's dog tags and threw them into space afterwards. I thought it was a beautiful moment. It was amazing. This movie is okay. It is, to Ryan's point, a tad on the boring side. I was captivated, though, watching it now, knowing that it was made in 77, by the practicalness that is a lot of this movie. The sets are really cool. The costumes, some work better than others. But there's so much about this movie that I find to be really charming looking at that stuff, and also impressive. Just kind of seeing the stuff and trying to figure out, I wonder how they did that practically in 1977. That's a fun part. I probably had more fun trying to figure things out about the filmmaking than I did with the actual film itself. I agree. I think Luke Skywalker is my least favorite character so far in this franchise, and Han Solo is awesome. And that is my biggest takeaway so far, is I forgot just how awesome Han Solo is, and he's awesome right away. It's not like it does. It's not a slow climb for Han Solo. Han Solo is BA immediately, and I just wanted more of him. I wish that it was his movie and not Luke. because Luke's a little B. He's a little B in
he's a
this
whiny
movie.
man. It also takes us a few seconds, under 50 minutes, to get to Han Solo.
Sure.
Yes.
But overall, I had a fun time watching this movie, especially trying to like look through the lens of, hey, here's what I know about filmmaking now. Looking back at 77, some of this stuff is just amazing that they were able to do, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of looking back at this movie. Dano?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on both of these guys. I think that this movie deserves a little its due when it comes to the importance of it in history, not just to say it was important in history. It would not be too much of a stretch to say that for all of those who went to the 6th greatest box office opening of all time last weekend, Deadpool versus Wolverine last weekend, that movie doesn't happen without this movie. I know that that's crazy, but it just doesn't. I looked at some numbers. This movie was made for $14 million. It made $750 million. In today's dollars, it made $3.5 billion. So like Avengers Endgame made $2 billion. It's called a blockbuster, more or less, Jaws in this movie. You had never seen anything like this. I was born 6 years after this release, but I remember being 5-6 years old, watching this going, this is just not, we don't get this anywhere else. What happens here does change the course of cinema. Some people would say for worse, because now it's just sequels and comic books and big budget, everything. But this it's like Steph Curry changed basketball with a 3-point shot. That's what's going on here. It's a fundamental era of cinema that's starting with this movie. So we need to establish that. Second of all, we need to establish that George Lucas is a much better producer and visionary than he is a director. If he had left this movie all practical, he goes into the 90s, he puts in digital stuff, he refuses to take it out. The version we're watching on Disney Plus, wherever you're watching it, is almost assuredly not that old version. And that's unfortunate, because the beauty of this movie almost 50 years later lies in the practicality of it. The effects, the desert, the towns, the miniatures that are exploding. That is filmmaking that led to people like Chris Nolan. You don't get a Chris Nolan without this movie. All right, I've said all that. This movie kind of isn't great. It is generational. It is seminal. It is not very entertaining. We don't get Han Solo until 50 minutes in. This movie basically is 4 set pieces with some interstitials hung together in between those set pieces. It's like, C-3PO and R2-D2 wandering around the desert. Then it's Luke and Obi-Wan trying to find transport to Alderaan. Then it's on the Death Star, and then it's the final finale of this blowing up the Death Star. Everything else kind of gets us from point A to B. That's all this movie really is. It is not. My kids, who are 8, older than I was when I was enthralled by this movie, they watched this movie bored to tears, but barely hung on, wanted to watch something else. It doesn't hold up in that regard. It's tough to expect that. This has always been my second favorite Star Wars movie. I've not watched it in 20 years. I cannot imagine it hanging on to place number 2 during a rewatch. I can't imagine it. There's not enough good that happens in this movie to warrant it. Sorry, not sorry.
Let's get to all the feels, where we talk about what in this movie gave us some feels, whether it be charming, wonderful, magical, could be anything. Ryan, any feels for you?
I have like a 2-parter, and I apologize if either part of this first part steals either of yours. I just want to say for a sweeping overall sum of all of its parts, for all 11 of these that we do, John Williams'
there
score
it is. Yeah.
and James Earl Jones' voice will always be feels, right?
Dude.
So if you guys want to hone in on those for yours, go for it. But I just want to say, for me, anytime either, and John Williams will be in all 11, but anytime either of those things are playing or being heard on screen, that's a great feel.
And it goes without saying, but we're going to say it. It goes without saying, but we're going to say it. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you want me to get hyper specific on a more granular level, Vader's second scene in this film, which is the "I find your lack of faith disturbing" scene, very, very, very famous Star Wars quote. That's like near 40 or so minutes in. Dan was keeping tabs on when Han shows up. I was keeping tabs on when does Vader actually feel like Vader? Because I personally don't think he feels like Vader in that first scene. To me, it's a bit of a bummer. But that second scene, when you get hit with that line, I was like, oh, that's like one of the reasons why this became what it was. Because Darth Vader is maybe, if not unquestionably, the greatest villain in the history of cinema. And that second scene is when I think they really figure out the pieces on that, Brent.
Mark Hamill's adorably green in this movie. It's almost like he's just like a Midwestern kid that just kind of shows up to set one day. It's like, oh man, what's going on? Shucks, why are you kidding me right now? Yeah. And I found all of that to be just kind of adorable because looking back now, like I think of Mark Hamill a lot as like this guy that I know from like the newer ones and these fun little Star Wars bits that I've seen growing up.
Yeah, he's more of a vocal, he did a lot of vocal stuff that was really good later on.
And so seeing this performance in particular was kind of charming. Like it's like you can tell he's new to this game, but in a really fun and cute way. Even though his character's annoying AF, I found Mark Hamill to be quite adorable.
But here's the thing: is Harrison Ford's just better at this point. I'm not saying forever, but at this point, Harrison Ford's just better than the rest of the cast. He looks unbelievable. He's got the swagger. He's not taking himself too seriously. He is just acting circles around everybody else out there, and I think that is the thing. But Luke is such a annoying. Two things. One is John Williams' score absolutely slaps. He's I don't know how a guy can be at the top of his game for 50 years, but he's 45 when he composes this score, and he literally is 2 years after Jaws, and he's about to do Close Encounters. This guy is unbelievable. He slows it down, he speeds it up, he adds new mixes, he goes minor. He's crushing it here. That's one. Number two, the only point I would disagree with Ryan is end of this movie still works for me. The lightsaber fight isn't nearly as good as I remember as a kid. The lightsaber fight's kind of terrible.
We'll talk about it.
But them flying to destroy the Death Star and leading up and building the tension and the score building and Vader taking everybody out and then being like the Force is strong with this guy and then he knocks it, he destroys the Death Star. That still did work for me. I was on the edge of my seat. Still did feel like a child, and so that was pretty great.
Let's take one more quick break. We'll come back with the wait what and the what's in the stars.
Force for
Star
you.
Wars?
Yeah.
Thank you, Hallmark. Star Wars?
You say horse? We didn't do that. What did we do? Fast or Furious or Driver of the Week or something?
Let's just do Fast or Furious again.
Star or Wars?
Empire or Rebellion? Star or Wars? I like that a lot.
It's time for Wait What. It's where we talk about what in this movie. Let's go. Wait, what? Ryan?
I have a few. Obi-Wan, old Ben, he's a terrible negotiator, guys. Han asks for 10K.
And he's like,
Obi-Wan counters with, how about 17?
How about 17K?
And then Luke gets mad at Han because Han thinks that Ben Kenobi's a crazy old man. But Han Solo's like counting the money on his fingers going, well, this guy just offered me 7,000 more than I offered him. He's a crazy old man.
But also, Ben Kenobi's a bad negotiator if he can't use the Force. But this is a guy that can do this and make people do whatever the heck he wants them to do. That makes him the world's worst negotiator.
And maybe the world's worst Jedi.
That's right.
Or the world's best Jedi, depending on what.
He created Darth Vader and then died in one of the worst lightsaber battles of all time. Maybe Obi-Wan's not so great.
Yeah.
You can email Brian at deckthehallmark.com.
Brian at deckthehallmark.com.
Shout out.
Han shot first is too convoluted for me to explain. I don't even know if I totally understand all the beats of it. But if you're new to Star Wars, kind of like us,
I thought Han died in Tokyo Drift. Is that just me?
Yeah. Well, they don't use them right in 8, 9, and 10. Let me tell you.
Justice for Han.
Yeah. Han shot first makes diehard Star Wars fans upset. I would recommend doing a deep dive on that. I just wanted to mention it in the wait what made sense. Dan, you touched on this a bit. The Han, Jabba, or Boba Fett scene, depending on who you're talking to, is another addition that they made years later.
Brutal.
George Lucas loves this stuff. And also to the point that you two illuminated better than I did. I kind of just focused on the stuff I didn't like. Jabba the Hutt is digitally inserted and it looks terrible.
Awful.
It's really bad.
It looks so bad, and it makes you appreciate.
Yeah.
Because I had those moments too. It makes you appreciate just how amazingly done this film was for its time. I totally. All right, so the lightsaber thing isn't great, right? I totally forgot that Ben Kenobi's lightsaber has performance anxiety during the Darth Vader
Yep.
fight.
Yep.
It's
tough.
that was really cute and awful. And then last one, and this happens. I think Brandy even touched on this in a different part in the synopsis. It happens a lot, and I think a lot of this can be attributed to the fact that Mark Hamill, who does figure it out on the acting front as we go along, hadn't figured it out yet. But and this is also a bit on the script. But at one point, he is just absolutely distraught that this guy he's known for 24 hours, Ben Kenobi, is dead. And then on the next scene, he just has to go back to hitting on his sister. So
Yeah. A lot of that in this movie.
You know, there's a lot of impressive costumes in this movie.
Yeah.
The movie kicks off, though, with some of the most ridiculous helmets I've ever seen. One, they're just all too big for people's heads. They're all falling off. It's just not helpful. But two, a lot of these guys get killed by being shot in the face. And what good is your helmet if you don't have something here
To frame your
so
face
it's
better
just
for
yeah,
a
it's just like
bullseye, yeah.
aim here.
right.
If you want to get me, aim here. It's a better shot for you, and I'll still die. Luke he's got to get out more. I'll say it that way, because my guy is losing his mind at a tiny little projection of any girl. He's like, whoa, auga. He's losing his mind.
And it turns out it's his sister.
Yeah, that's
gang.
tough. We'll get there. Right now, I'm acting as if I don't know that, and I'm just watching this guy lose his mind at the tiniest little blue projection of a girl. Buddy, you got to get out more. I loved the scene early. You talked about how Darth Vader kind of is just around early on in this movie. The scene where he walks into a boardroom and it's just all normal dudes and he's just in his costume like, hey, it's me. I found that to be just a very funny visual of this guy in this costume, and all the other guys are like, but what are we going to do about this, huh? And last but not least, this line is said with all of the vigor and seriousness in the world. By Obi-Wan, I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced. And then he has the goal to say, I fear something terrible has happened. You freaking think so?
You think so,
like,
bud?
Dramatic much? This guy's like, I think something bad has happened. Here's the closest I can compare it to. Millions of voices calling out in anguish. I think something bad. I think something might be messed up. Dano?
Yeah.
What happened?
This is the only one I'm going to do that is I know what happens in the future. Wait, what? You cannot convince me George Lucas knew the twist in Empire during the making of this movie. I don't care how many backflips you have to do. You can't convince me. Too much happens in this movie to convince me or anyone that George Lucas knew who Darth Vader was, who Leia was. That is all retrofitted. It is not. I'm sorry. You can't watch this movie and think that George Lucas knew what was going to happen in 2 or 5, whatever. You can't do it. Sorry. Ryan referenced the second Darth Vader scene as being the scene. And the reason that's the scene is the first time you see Darth Vader, he is an angry mom that his kids did not clean up their room. That is what he is. I forgot about this. Darth Vader's entrance into the Star Wars universe is he storms in and he puts his hands on his hips. Not like Superman, like, come on, guys, what's going on? He puts his hands on his hips like he's upset at people who aren't doing their jobs, and it is the weirdest. Go back and watch that
Boys?
scene. Yeah. It is like, what are all these stormtroopers doing in here? It is a weird scene. I couldn't stop laughing. I rewound it several times because I did not remember Darth Vader being that at all. Also, knowing what we know and knowing Princess Leia's character, how quickly she is captured by stormtroopers at the beginning of this movie is offensive. She's the only one that has any way, like she has all these ideas to get out of trouble constantly. At the beginning of this movie, stormtroopers who are notoriously the worst shots in the universe. I'm pretty sure on the Stormtrooper entrance exam is, can you hit a bullseye? You can't, you're hired. No one shoots worse than these guys. They shoot her on the first try. The first Stormtrooper hits her on the first try. Not a single miss. And I don't think justice for Leia there. I don't think that's fair. Luke Skywalker gets over the death of his beloved Guardians in 10 seconds. He sees that they're all dead. The sun sets and he's like, well, never. He literally says, I'm never coming back to this planet. So good, dude. You don't have to bury him. And speaking of not having to bury them, it's a PG family movie, and we see 2 charred corpses in this film. So thanks for that. Don't remember that from being a kid at all. This bar that is supposedly the place where all the like criminals go to hang out. This bar, there's one group of people they won't serve. Protocol droids. Listen, if you are a thief, a crook, a murderer, you're welcome here. But if you're a droid that just knows to make sure they follow their P's and Q's, get the F out. We can't. If I know you're going to pay and tip well and not be a nuisance to anybody, you can't be in here. You can't be in here. That's the one group that we can't do it. We can't do it. And then lastly, I can't believe we have to go through this, but 2 meters is big. 2 meters is not, it's not like when they've got, the laser has to hit a 1 foot, 2 meters taller than me. It's 6.5 feet wide. That is a target that is very hittable in a space that where you're flying that is this, it's just not. You just make a better number up. 2 meters actually not force not necessary is all I'm saying. That's all I got.
It is time for Star Wars. It is where we talk about, what do we do here? Where we're
We say we're Star
or Wars and give a reason why.
Yes.
Okay. Ryan, are you Star Wars this week?
I'm glad you asked, Brand. I'm going to go Wars.
Can't believe it went Wars. Can you believe it went Wars?
Did someone say Wars? I think that my hypothesis for this overall, as we do this for the next 2.5 months of our lives, as we get ready to count down to Christmas here, why is Star Wars the most popular thing of all time, right? We identified, and Dan, you spoke to it beautifully, as to why this film is so important. And maybe the answer is just as simple as this film was really important. This film captured the imagination of multiple generations. And because of this film, the franchise overall is the most popular thing of all time. Or maybe
the idea of a franchise is
right,
yes.
Yeah. And so
it brought maybe serialized franchises to movies, to cinema. Right. I'm sure it wasn't the first, but it was the one that made it the thing it is. Yeah.
And I guess, this might be a little bit convoluted, especially here for Star Wars. But if something else had come first, would that have happened? I don't know, because based off this film, if we were just judging it on a micro level in relation to this film, I don't think any of us would go, oh yeah, well, this is going to become the catalyst for the most popular thing ever. Maybe the answer is just something had to be the most popular thing ever. Who knows? We'll find out as we go along.
I am going to go with Star. I'm Star this week. I'm excited to watch specifically the next 2 movies because I really enjoyed watching this one and kind of seeing things through the lens in which we live now and kind of how everything is CGI. This was a refreshing watch, and I'm excited to get more of that in the next 2 movies. My biggest concern, and there was a throwaway line, and I wish that this was the type of movie that did flashbacks because I would have loved to see it. But there's Han is questioning Luke's shooting abilities, and Luke says, "I bullseyed womp rats back in my T-16." And I just wish there was a flashback, and I wish that we would see that at some point. I don't think you're
going to see any bullseye womp rats. I'm sorry.
I wish that we were, though. I wish that we were. Bullseye and womp rats. You know what I mean? But overall, I'm starring. Dan?
I star as well. My star this week is Gold Leader, who's like, you know what? I don't need a chin strap. Everybody else Everybody else that flies one of these, every other Rebellion pilot is like, chin strap's very important. What if you hit some turbulence in space? What if you hit something that causes your head to jostle? You want to make sure that your head is intact. Gold Leader is like, I could not be less bothered by a chin strap. I know it is protocol. Not for me. Not doing it. And he also RIP Gold Leader. Obviously.
Thank you, Dano. It is time for Star of the Week. You can send in which star you would like to recognize, and we will let everybody know a little bit about that star. Dan, what star do we have this week?
Shelby Schechter? There's a note here because I would have said Schechter, but it says it says in parentheses, it's SH capital K dash ECK dash TER Shelby Schechter.
Schechter.
Yes,
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shelby is there.
Yes,
Camera 2.
I am. Hello, everybody.
Shelby, how you doing?
I'm honored to be the first star of the week.
Yeah, and I don't even know who nominated you. Do you know?
I nominated myself.
You
I wanted to
nominated
get the ball
yourself.
rolling.
Shelby Schechter,
Yes.
Star of the Week this week. Okay,
Yeah,
And
I gotta be honest.
you're gonna make it seem like whoever is Star of the Week does get to call into the show.
I'm not making promises. No,
Okay.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay. So what's the story of the last name? Schechter?
Oh, we don't need to get into that. That's not important.
Okay.
What is important is how good gluten-free bread's gotten.
No, it hasn't.
It's gotten good.
Don't give me Angry
No,
Dave's.
no, it's gotten
and
good.
what is it? Ezekiel bread?
It's gotten
I would
good.
No.
It's
No.
gotten good.
Shelby, I don't have time for this. That bread's trash. It's not bread. It's disgusting.
The bread is my star of the week. That's
No.
why I nominated myself so I could talk about it. It's gotten good.
Shelby Schechter, everybody.
Thanks, Shelb.
Do you have a star number? Like, do you have a certified star or no?
No, the bread, though, certified
bread is a certified
999643.
Shelby Schechter, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Shelbs.
Glad this bit is back.
Uh,
At least people won't be confused by the postal worker or the driver of the week. This is no way people think there's actual stars out there, right?
Was it driver of the week?
It was
that what
driver of the
Driver
week.
of the
Yes, yeah. It's driver of the week.
So stupid.
well, we
I
did
can't
it,
believe how many
everybody.
of these are alliterative too. That they have the same
It's
initial
weird.
for first name and last name. It's crazy.
And I thought for sure the star of the week was going to be like a star, like in the sky or something. Like, you know, they
Maybe
have-
oh,
there's
like Orion.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe like the Big Dipper, one of the stars is the Shelby Schechter. You're the one that had a person
I
on the
don't
line.
think we can say this continually. I don't think this is allowed.
Well, I
You think the Star Network's going to come after us?
I'll
International
say
Star Naming Committee is going to be on our case?
I'll say this: we obviously put the call out there, and Shelby was the first to jump in. This could evolve over time,
Into
I
your
think.
stars, yes.
But I don't.
I didn't say it was a person.
No, you didn't.
That just
Shelby
all of a
did.
sudden, somebody let
And
Shelby
again-
through on the line.
She's a big fan of gluten-free bread.
Yes, she is.
We're
You
back.
enjoyed it, Star Wars.
We're gonna be back next Friday with episode 5
the
for
force be with you, Dan.
for Force Fridays. Until next time, may the force be with you.
Deck the Hallmarks of Bramble Jam podcast is produced
Didn't
by
seem
Aaron
right.
Shea. For more information on Deck the Hallmark, you can go to deckthehallmark.com. For more information on the Deck the Hallmark family, you can go to bramblejamplus.com. Deck the Hallmark is presented by Philo TV. For a free trial of Philo, go to philo.tv/DTH.